Jeremiah chapter 1 Introduction. In this chapter, we have the pronouncement of God's judgment against the southern kingdom of Judah in the form of a covenant lawsuit, that is, the inevitable lawsuit of God's announcements. Contents 1. Jeremiah's call to the prophetic office, verses 1 to 10. 2. A vision of an almond tree and of a seething pot, verses 11 to 16. 3. Divine protection is promised to Jeremiah, verses 17 to 19. Jeremiah from a priestly family, verse 1. Hilkiah's son Jeremiah was one of the priests at a town called Anathoth. Jeremiah's father may have come from the family of Abiathar, who was sent to Anathoth during the days of King Solomon. 1 Kings chapter 1 verse 25 and chapter 2 verse 26-27. Anathoth was a village about 3 miles, that is 5 kilometers, to the northeast of Jerusalem, and it belonged to the tribe of Benjamin. Jeremiah's ministry, verses 2 and 3. Jeremiah became a prophet in 626 BC and prophesied 40 years till 586 BC, that is, during the reign of the following 5 kings of Judah. 1. Josiah, the son of Ammon, who was the last good king of Judah, who reinstituted spiritual reform and worship in the temple. He ruled 31 years from 640 BC to 609 BC. Jeremiah started his ministry in the 13th year of Josiah's reign. 2. Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah. Jehoiakim was king from 609 to 598 BC. He was a wicked and selfish ruler, and he opposed Jeremiah. He had destroyed Baruch's first record, Jeremiah chapter 36. 3. Jehoahaz. 4. Jehoiakim. The writer leaves out Jehoahaz and Jehoiakim because they were kings for just about 3 months each. 5. Zedekiah, the son of Josiah. He was the last king of Judah who reigned from 598 BC to 587 BC. Jeremiah spoke of the Lord's message until the 5th month of the 11th year that Zedekiah was king. Zedekiah was a weak ruler. Against Jeremiah's advice, he tried not to be loyal to Babylon. That action led to the end of the kingdom of Judah in 586 BC. Jeremiah's calling, his objection, and God's response to his objection. Verses 4 to 10. Verse 5. I ordain thee a prophet unto the nations. Though Jeremiah's prophetic commission began with Judah and Jerusalem, it was extended unto all the nations. Jeremiah was set apart by God and ordained to be a prophet unto the nations before he was born. Jeremiah was probably between 17 and 20 years old at this time. Apparently, he felt that his youth prevented him from being a good and authoritative messenger of God's word. Moreover, he thought he was too young to be called of God. He considered himself a child. But the Lord denied that Jeremiah was too young. The Lord commands Jeremiah to speak for him. God isn't looking for people of ability, but of availability. God commands Jeremiah to fear not, and then tells him of his calling. Verse 10. See, I have this day set thee over the nations and over the kingdoms, to root out, to pull down, and to destroy, and to throw down, to build, and to plant. In this verse, there are 4 words of destruction and judgment, but only 2 words of restoration, as if the message was chiefly of evil. These 6 verbs appear throughout the book to summarize the 2 aspects of Jeremiah's ministry, that is, judgment and restoration. Jeremiah can be compared with Moses. 1. God addressed both Moses and Jeremiah directly. 2. Moses is called a prophet unto the Israelites, and Jeremiah is called a prophet unto the nations. 3. Both Moses and Jeremiah were members of the tribe of Levi. 4. Moses and Jeremiah both expressed hesitancy and unfitness for the mission to which God called them because of an inadequacy of speech. 5. God touched the mouth of Moses and Jeremiah, put his words in their mouth, and used them for his ministry. Rod of an almond tree. Verses 11-12. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Jeremiah, what seest thou? And I said, I see a rod of an almond tree. Then said the Lord unto me, Thou hast well seen, for I will hasten my word to perform it. Here we see a teacher-student conversation. Through the conversation, God shows that the power to accomplish what the prophethood declared remained with him. An almond is a type of nut. The Hebrew for almond tree is awakening tree because it is the first tree to awaken in the spring. Here, Jeremiah was looking at a branch of a tree that wakes up early. It blossoms in January when the other trees are still in their winter sleep. It was like a watcher's tree that hastens to awake out of the wintry sleep and thus expresses the divine haste. It bears fruit in March just at the commencement of spring when the other trees only begin to bud. The almond tree was here the symbol of that promptitude and vigilance with which God was about to fulfill his judgment. It also means that the sins of God's people are sooner ripe than the heathens because they have the constant light and heat of his word to hasten their maturity. The Hebrew word for rod, makel, is here used in the sense of shoot or twig. As a rod is an instrument of punishment, the rod of an almond tree is the symbol of that punishment which the prophet was about to announce. Here is a figure of speech called paranomasia, or a play of words to emphasize a certainty. An almond tree, meaning shaked in Hebrew, rhymes with I will hasten my word to perform it, meaning shoked in Hebrew. It presents a play of word upon the word almond tree, as God the watcher watches diligently over his word to fulfill his judgment. God had made Jeremiah to see the staff of a watcher. The Lord then says that the thing seen is just a very proper emblem of what he is about to do, and that he will watch over his word to execute it by inflicting his judgments upon Judah and its inhabitants. In short, God intimates that the might and the power of his hand would be connected with his word. He is watching over his word to make sure that the judgment shall come to pass with no delay. A seething pot, verses 13-16. Verse 13. And the word of the Lord came unto me the second time, saying, What seest thou? And I said, I see a seething pot, and the face thereof is toward the north. We find from Ezekiel chapter 24 that a boiling pot was an emblem of war and the desolations it produces. The pot denotes the empire of the Babylonians and the Chaldeans lying to the north of Judea and pouring forth its multitudes like a thick vapor to overspread the land of Judah. It signified that the Babylonians and Chaldeans would be as a pot to seethe the Jews who boiled in their pleasures and lust. Verse 14. Then the Lord said unto me, Out of the north an evil shall break forth upon all the inhabitants of the land. The Lord explained that the contents of the boiling pot represented an evil that would overflow from the north upon all the inhabitants of Judah in the south. This seething pot was set upon a pile of inflammable materials. The pot in the north rested on one side, and its mouth was about to pour forth its contents southwards, namely on Judea. Should it still continue to boil, the time will finally come when it will be overturned and will pour the whole mass of its boiling contents upon the south. It symbolized that since the wickedness of Judah has reached a certain point, God could no longer tolerate it. So, disastrous judgments upon Jerusalem would come from military expeditions attacking from the north. Verse 15. For lo, I will call all the families of the kingdoms of the north, saith the Lord. The tense used in Hebrew shows that the judgment is at the very door. The summons have already gone forth and has now begun execution, thus aggravating the picture of calamity. Jeremiah no doubt gave this narrative that the Lord said in order to show that God is the author of this prophecy. The families of the kingdoms of the north are those nations that are under one king. It represented not only Babylon, which is the country lying immediately to the north of Judah, but of the whole region of the Euphrates and the Tigris. All these enemy armies would enter Judah from the north. The Lord is about to incline the northern countries to join together in this work. Jeremiah 6:22, chapter 10:22, and chapter 25 verses 9 and 26. Verse 15 continues, And they shall set every one his throne at the entering of the gates of Jerusalem, and against all the walls thereof round about, and against all the cities of Judah. The enemies of Jerusalem are here represented as conquering the whole land and putting the whole of Judah under their own laws, so that the Jews should be wholly subjugated and no longer possess any political power. Thrones are a figure for the establishing of sovereignty. The Babylonians will execute God's judgment on Judah by pitching many thrones at the following three places. 1. The entering of the gates of Jerusalem. The gates of the cities were the ordinary places where justice was administered. Invaders chose this place so that they will be no longer going in and coming out. Isaiah 22:7. The prophecy was fulfilled in Jeremiah 39:1-4, Jeremiah 43:10, Jeremiah 49:38, and Jeremiah 52:4. 2. Against all the walls thereof round about. This shows the great multitude, power, and courage of the Chaldeans. 3. Against all the cities of Judah. Not only Jerusalem, but other cities of Judah, which were no better than Jerusalem in their wickedness, were also judged. Verse 16. And I will utter my judgments against them, touching all their wickedness, who have forsaken me, and have burnt incense unto other gods, and worshipped the works of their own hands. In accordance with the custom of law courts, God uttered his judgment against the crimes of the guilty city in the sentence. The charges brought against her are three. 1. They have forsaken the true God. 2. They have burnt incense to false gods. 3. They worship the works of their own hands. The main reason for the coming judgment was Judah's chronic idolatry. Idolatry was the source of all their wickedness and was the cause of their desolations. These sins demonstrated Judah's covenant unfaithfulness, for which God had promised his covenant lawsuit and curse. Leviticus chapter 26 verses 14-39, Deuteronomy 28, 15-68. Through archaeological findings in the area of the old city of David and dating back to the time of Jeremiah, multitudes of idols have been discovered among the dwellings. This confirms the word of the prophet Jeremiah. The Lord warns Jeremiah, verses 17-19. Verse 17. Thou therefore gird up thy loins and arise, and speak unto them all that I command thee. Be not dismayed at their faces, lest I confound thee before them. Gird up thy loins and arise are words used by God to speed up Jeremiah about his work. It is a metaphor signifying the long robes worn by the Eastern people who, while going on a long journey, were obliged to tuck the robe up into their girdles to shorten it and make it less cumbersome so that they can speed up and the movement of their body might not be hampered. By thus speaking, the Lord urges his prophet to use all possible vigor and intention of mind as well as of body, that he might execute with diligence and dispatch the office which God had assigned him. Lest I confound thee before them. This phrase seems to be spoken by way of aggravation. If any message was concealed, God would shame Jeremiah or destroy him even in the sight of the people to become their reproach. Verse 18. For behold, I have made thee this day a defenced city and an iron pillar and brazen walls. God used the below three metaphors of how strong Jeremiah is made. 1. Defenced city. It is protected and secure. It signifies that no trial or sufferings would crush Jeremiah. 2. Iron pillar. The iron pillar supports the building. It cannot be removed out of its place. It signifies leadership and strength that God is giving Jeremiah. 3. Brazen wall. It cannot be broken. It probably refers to the practice of fastening plates of brass over the brick or stonework of a fortified wall. It represents the power given to Jeremiah to patiently endure the attacks of his enemies and still be unharmed. All these metaphors show the safety and security of the prophet because the Lord would defend him. It shows that nothing will be able to move and deter him from the execution of his office. Verse 18. Against the whole land, against the kings of Judah, against the princes thereof, against the priests thereof, and against the people of the land. That is, all its inhabitants in general, intimating that though men of all degrees should set themselves against Jeremiah, yet God would support him against them all and would carry him through his work. Verse 19. And they shall fight against thee, but they shall not prevail against thee, for I am with thee, saith the Lord, to deliver thee. By saying so, God reassures and gives a certainty of security. The source of Jeremiah's confidence was the abiding presence of the Lord and the constant manifestation of God's power. As God promised Jeremiah, he outlived all the insults and saw Jerusalem destroyed and the enemies of the Lord carried into captivity. Jeremiah chapter 1. Questions. Jeremiah chapter 1. Answers.